This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Happy Friday, Pacer Nation. What is going on? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast. And if you're listening to this on the YouTube channel, you will see Jimmy Cook joining me in his moving camera here as he is using his iPad. Jay Cook, what's up, man? How you doing?
Well, I guess I'll just steer into that skid right now. If I go to the right, you'll see me there. If I go to the left, you'll see me there. There's going to be a reoccurring thing. If I drink water,
Might
zoom in that time. But yes, I am a walking caricature today for Setting the Pace. But I'm very happy to be here as always, Alex. And it's the off season, but there's still plenty to talk about thanks to Team USA and our own Tyrese Haliburton being involved in that.
Yeah, Tyrese Haliburton on Team USA, Andrew Nembhard playing with Canada as well, and then we've got Summer League basketball coming up, I believe, Friday night. So it's a good time to be a Pacer fan. But we're going to be talking about that game that took place on Wednesday night. It was a late tip-off Wednesday night, 10:30. Some of you guys may have stayed up. Some of you may have fell asleep like myself. I was going to record actually Wednesday after the game with Jimmy. It's getting close to the end of halftime. I said, Jimmy, I can't record tonight. I'm too tired. I got up at 4 this morning. I just can't do it. I'd been about 24 hours awake for me. I was like, I'm going to bed. So we are here tonight to record this, but let's just talk about this. Obviously, good to see Tyrese Haliburton back. I guess the first question for me, and one of the questions I got today from somebody at work is Tyrese Haliburton fully healthy now?
It looks like it. And the full answer to that question, because I've gotten some of the same, Alex, isn't going to be answered until the season starts. And I know that's kind of a half-assed answer, but hear me out on that for a second. What Tyrese Haliburton is going to be asked to be with the Pacers is far different than what he's being asked to be with Team USA. The biggest knock that I had in the back half of the regular season and during the Pacers run to the conference finals was I didn't think Tyrese Haliburton looked like himself, because I had seen in the first half of the season a player that's not only an unselfish facilitator, that is one of the most gifted passers currently in the league, he's also a scorer. He can create his own shot. He can finish at the rim. He's a three-point threat. He's a dynamic offensive piece. And that kind of went away post-injury. Now, we'll never get a clear direction other than what the Pacers and coach speak and all that of, no, he's fine, or everybody's hurt, all that. Okay, great. He looked like a different player. And I'm not at a point where I want to say that he looked like a different player because what happened in the first half was an anomaly. I don't believe that. I don't think the Pacers believe that. So in order to see him as that all-around player, a do-it-all scorer, a shot creator, and a facilitator, that answer of if he's fully healthy isn't going to be cleared, in my mind anyway, until September and October when we get into training camp and into the start of the regular season. But in terms of who he is as arguably the greatest or one of the greatest point guards currently playing in the NBA today, he's a perfect fit for Team USA. Last night, he plays, 20 minutes? He's not a starter, but he clearly helped rejuvenate Team USA when they got into that lull early on in the first quarter. He was making plays on both ends of the floor, though admittedly, defensively, that gets a little easier when you have Drew Holiday on your other side, admittedly. It does help you make some plays. But no, I thought he looked like the player we've always known he is, which is, if you look, and I'm not going to do it because my camera is going to move, but if you look to your left or you look to your right and you have LeBron James or Steph Curry or Joel Embiid or Kevin Durant didn't play last night, but you get my point, Anthony Edwards.
Did Joel Embiid play last night?
Did Joel? he logged minutes. Did he play? He logged minutes. But the point is, when you surround him with gifted players, Alex,
yeah,
you're asking him to be his truest self, which is a pass-first point guard.
To me, this is just a perfect way for him to display what he can do when he has stars around him. I think that people are going to just see how much he loves to share the basketball and how open he is about doing it. You talk about a guy that played 20 minutes last night, was a team high plus 17 on the floor. And I know a lot of people don't love plus minus as a stat to look at, but when it's that glaring of a difference, I think it's fair to say, okay, the Team USA, I almost said the Pacers because it's hard not to, but Team USA looked better with Haliburton on the floor running the point guard than what that starting lineup looked like. I think that while LeBron James is kind of the point guard of that starting five.
He's a point forward for sure.
Yeah, for Team USA, because Steph is not really a point guard. As much as we want to say, is like, I even think when they were asking the players, right, who the best point guard in the NBA is, I even think Steph said Tyrese Haliburton.
By the way, I know you said you almost said Pacers. Any truth to the rumors that you almost rebranded to Setting the Country during the Olympics?
Boo, that's a terrible joke.
America.
What are we doing? Setting the Country?
I understand.
Come
we're
on.
only like 4 minutes in, but I felt like I had to get that in there.
Jimmy, you're working on your dad jokes early on. By the way,
I am.
Jimmy's going to be a dad here soon. When is your baby due?
September 27th.
Okay, September 27th. Nice. So, that's right around my wedding anniversary. Me and my wife were Me and my wife were married on the 29th. So, congratulations to you, man. That's exciting.
Thank you, man. And congratulations to the Golden family as well. I know you guys are also expecting, so it's very happy time with both our families. Congrats to you guys as well. But in regards to where Haliburton is in this, we talked about it. Could he be a starter? Like, it's so weird for me anyway, arguing over, like, of the greatest players in the world, who is the select starting five? Like, I did this the other day. If you're asking me who my starting five is for Team USA, and we modified it, so starting five is probably the same five you're ending the game with. But for the sake of argument, your crunch time starting five on this team, for me anyway, LeBron James. I don't have the roster in front of me, so I might butcher this. LeBron James. No, I'm going to get it. LeBron James, Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis. That's my five. I'm perfectly fine having out there in a crunch time, got to have a game, got to have a moment, whatever the case may be. That said, yes, if LeBron wasn't on this roster and you needed a true facilitator, Tyrese is probably your starting point guard. Like, he's the only true point guard on the team. I mean, you just said it yourself. So where he can best fit in is that second unit, or in maybe large mid-game minutes like he got yesterday, where he's facilitating. He's not worried about getting his, right? He's totally cool with setting up his teammates. You're seeing part of that. Alex, I'll pose this question to you, and I don't mean to, like, if I'm stepping outside my bounds.
No, you're good.
Setting the pace guest, you let me know. I asked this today. By the way, I don't know if we introduced this properly, but Jimmy Cook here, co-host of Query and Company. You can catch us on 93.5 and 107.5.
Company man, ladies and gentlemen.
From noon to 3. I do my best. For Tyrese Haliburton, you mentioned him looking so great with stars around him. With Siakam being retained, with knowing Miles Turner is there, if Benedict Mathurin is 100% going into camp, and let's say Benedict Mathurin takes a step forward, for the sake of argument, let's say offensively alone, but he takes a step to a point that he's a clear ISO guy, sure, but he also fits better now than he did a year ago in the Pacers system. Aren't you getting a mini preview? You're sure you're not having Steph Curry to the right or LeBron James to the left, but aren't you getting a mini preview what the Pacers want to be next year, which is Tyrese, yeah, you can score at will, but he can set up everybody for success, and he might not have all the stars he had for Team USA, but if Benedict Mathurin becomes a star, Pascal Siakam is certainly a star. You're getting a little taste this summer of what Tyrese Haliburton looks like when he has great pieces around him. Am I a bridge too far there, or do you kind of see the comparison I'm trying to make?
I think you're a little too far for me, but okay. I do understand the comparison. I will just say this.
By the way, Benedict Mathurin is not LeBron. I want to clarify that. I'm not saying he's ever going to be LeBron, but
that's where this conversation goes a little bit. That comparison gets a little bit off for me, is just because the Pacers guys you're talking about, none of those guys would make Team USA if they were all American and they could all be eligible to play, right? So Tyrese is still the best player on the team, and I think you don't want him to be so selfish that he can't get other guys involved and play his style, which is what you want to see, where he can be more of his style of player, where he's not relied upon, to score 25, 30 points a game. And you're not seeing Kevin O'Connor go on Twitter only when Haliburton has a bad game and say he's only looking for, a shot 5 times in this game. Okay. If he has 20 assists in a playoff game, but only has 5 points, that's a totally different story. But to me, I'm still in the boat where who is the number one player on this Pacers team? It's Tyrese Haliburton. And when you are the number one player and you're the franchise guy, yeah, your style might be a little bit different than a Jalen Brunson who's looking to score every single time he comes down the court with the ball in his hands. But you do have to be the guy that can kind of carry that team when they need it to be carried, because there's going to be times when, hey, Mathurin might not have it, Pascal might not have it. So while Tyrese can try to settle these guys up to be these beneficiaries of his playmaking, you need him to be able to still have that switch where he can turn over and take over a game. And I don't think we're really going to see that version of him with Team USA.
No, most definitely you won't.
So it's to me, it's like, this is a good example of what you can see, like what Tyrese is like when he has other great stars around him and how unselfish he is as just a player in general. But that to me is more of like, okay, we already kind of knew this about Tyrese.
Sure.
We're just getting to see it on a bigger stage now with the best in the world.
But with the reason I bring up the comparison is, no disrespect to my hometown, which I love a great deal, but it's been well documented within the NBA, within Pacer circles. You've mentioned it on Setting the Pace in the past. You're not going to get external free agents that are Team USA caliber players, right? The only way to maybe get one of those guys is to do it in the draft. And so the bridge I'm trying to draw is that, yes, Tyrese Haliburton should still be a scoring point guard. He should still be the guy we saw in the first half of the season. But if you get a leap forward from Benedict Mathurin, which, don't kid yourself, the Pacers are banking on that. Like, they are 1,000% banking on Benedict Mathurin being the player that he was hyped to be out of Arizona, where he can be a takeover guy, where he can be a reliable second star. Because if they're, I had this conversation with some of my family members the other day who are diehard Pacers fans. If they're wrong on Mathurin, there's a cap with how far they can go. Like, if they miss on a draft pick when they're a team that does not spend time in the lottery often, they are, I don't think the number was as close to the Spurs, but like they had a stretch where like they are always never good enough to win it all, but never bad enough to be that far in the lottery. Like they're a consistently average to above average franchise. And so when you get a moment when you can make a selection like Mathurin, you have to be right on it. So all the parallel I'm drawing there is, no, I don't think Mathurin's going to be necessarily an all-NBA player, but for him to be the second star in this first Tyrese Haliburton championship window, maybe you're getting a further, you're right, we already knew, but you're getting a further taste of what Tyrese Haliburton can do with the ball in his hands when he is being asked to be selfless versus selfish. And that's going to be his role on Team USA, because he's not going to be asked to go score 20 a night for Team USA. They don't need it. Like they're going to, maybe not the way they did 20 years ago, they're going to win gold. Like they're going to win gold. It is just a question of by how much. And because of that fact, you don't need Tyrese Haliburton to go get 30 a night. He can have one of those 15, 20 assist games you referenced there, Alex. That's totally fine here. The question is, how does that dynamic change for him next season in the blue and gold versus what it is now in the red, white, and blue?
I want to go back to Mathurin because I think everybody knows Mathurin is a walking bucket. When he's on the court, you know that he's going to score in a variety of ways, whether it's shooting step-back three-pointers or driving to the basket or drawing fouls. Like, he has a lot of great ways of scoring. It's just, how does he facilitate? How does he, play better defense? That's kind of his whole thing. But for me, it's like, I think Tyrese Haliburton would gladly, defer to Mathurin if Mathurin's going, because
no doubt.
I think Tyrese, to a certain degree, as unselfish as he is, there's probably still a little bit of selfishness to him in terms of wanting to score points. Like, especially if you're trying to make all NBA teams and things like that, he can't average 14 points a game and 18 assists and make one of those teams, probably, just because people be like, oh, he's only a 14-point per game scorer. Like, he's going to look for his own just because it's natural. And I think it is in the flow of the offense. Like, they need him to do that. But I think he'll be willing to find guys that are going when it's their time. Like, he clearly showed that in the playoffs quite a bit. Maybe defers too much sometimes because it's just in his nature to be a little bit passive. And I think that's where he's got to find that fine balance, because so many times it's like, you got to take this many shots. You got to be a better scorer. You're the face of the franchise. Where he's like, man, I want to just be pass first. I want to just kind of get these guys involved. And now he's been battling probably since he got to Indiana, how much to differentiate, like not differentiate, but like how much to prioritize passing
Right.
versus scoring, right? And so trying to find that balance. And now it's like, okay, now that we got more guys that can score, like let's bring it back a little bit. Let's not score as much. Well, no. I think you just need to play your game, Tyrese. Do what you do. And honestly, if you can just get better defensively, Tyrese Haliburton, and you can maybe improve a little bit more, like with a mid-range shot, add that to your game a little bit more than you did last year. Like the sky's the limit for the guy. He's so young still, and I think people forget that. And I put out a tweet last night just to get back to Team USA. Like that starting five got off to a really rough start. They brought that second unit in of Haliburton, Anthony Edwards, Jayson Tatum, Bam Adebayo, and Anthony Davis, and they started clicking really well. And I said that five is better than the first five that started. And it's not because the first five aren't more talented on paper. It's because they don't fit as well together, in my personal opinion. Having a pass first point guard and Tyrese, with Anthony Edwards, who is that number one scorer, but then you got Jayson Tatum, who clearly knows what it takes to play with other great scorers because of how good Boston is. And then Anthony Davis, he clearly has to share the ball with LeBron. He's used to that. And Bam's not a guy that's going to be demanding the basketball. It just seemed to be like, okay, Tyrese is our point, Ant's our go-to guy. But then we got AD, we got Bam, we got Tatum. Like, to me, it just felt like, wow, I wouldn't be surprised if that five beat the starting five for Team USA in multiple scrimmages just because of what they were able to do as a group versus what they might be all five on paper.
It's something that I want to monitor as the showcase goes on, right? As they get further along in the prep for the Olympics, which obviously just a couple weeks away. I would chalk up a lot of the struggles that the starting five had. And I realize you could ask, well, why didn't the second unit struggle like this? I don't have an answer for you, but like it looked like the first time an all-star game group were playing together because of how much talent was on the floor. I'd like to see that same starting five through a progression of these showcase games, through group play to open up the Olympics. And I have a hard time believing that what we saw from them in terms of the disconnect, the turnovers, the miscommunication, I think what we just saw, and maybe I'm going to be way off on this, what we just saw from that starting five to open a game, probably the worst we're going to see from them this entire cycle.
Sure.
Because they're just going to get better as they continue to grow and become more of a cohesive unit. That said, it doesn't take anything away from your point. I'm sure that second unit would win a couple games. I don't know if I'm going to say they're going to win the majority because there's some real talent in that starting five, but this is the beauty of having a team of legendary players, because there might be moments where the first five do go cold in, let's say, that group play game against Serbia, and maybe Jokic is tearing everybody up and they're turning the ball over. Well, then you bring in Haliburton and you bring in Edwards and you bring in Bam and you bring in Tatum and you bring in AD, and it changes the dynamic of things, no doubt. And it's a testament to Tyrese and it's a testament to that group. But I think that, like, I gave you my five, and I want to put you on the spot since I'm for those that don't know right now, I'm not, this is going to sound like I'm tooting my own horn, because I've had to downscale my operation here, hence my moving camera that's going to follow me wherever I go. This is all off the dome, baby. So I don't have the starting five in front of me here, or I don't have the full Olympic roster on there. But Alex, I gave you my five to end the game. LeBron, Steph, Edwards, KD, assuming he plays, assuming he's healthy, and Anthony Davis. 5 to close the game. Close out gold medal game. Who's your five?
I mean, I think that's a five I'd probably go with based on who's on the roster. I will say this. I think there's a case you could say Jayson Tatum should be in there over Anthony Edwards. Sure. And I understand Anthony Edwards is like everybody's favorite because he's got that dog in him and he talks a lot.
I love Anthony Edwards. I love him.
But like, I think people just are so kind of disrespectful to what Jayson Tatum is as a player and what he did for Boston. I get it. Their team's stacked. They've got a lot of good players, but let's not deny how good of a player he is. Like, I think Jaylen Brown did have better moments in both the Eastern Conference Finals and the Finals, right? I know Doris Burke was really pushing for Jayson Tatum on the broadcast, trying to get him the MVP of the Finals against Dallas. But regardless of who wins that, I just think that Jayson Tatum is probably one of the most disrespected, I guess you could say, top 10 players in the league, just because everybody kind of thinks, well, he really isn't that good. And I don't know how you feel about him, but
I mean, look, go ahead.
Let's be honest. Okay. Like, the players voted. It's a respect thing. LeBron James is not the best player on Team USA. LeBron James has clearly taken a step back. I know that he can still do cool alley-oops, and what he's doing at 39 is amazing. But let's not deny that LeBron James is probably not a top 10 player in the NBA based on the talent that is passing him as we're speaking. LeBron James is still very, very good, but watch him play a full game. He maybe plays defense for 24 or 48 minutes of a game. The guy is trying to conserve energy. He looked tired in the first quarter of this exhibition game we're talking about here. I'm not trying to disrespect one of the greatest players, but it's very similar to how the 1992 Dream Team had some older guys that maybe weren't the best players on the team, but they were viewed as it, even though MJ was clearly the best player. Barkley was one of the best players. You know, it's a respect thing, and I'm not being disrespectful. They're all-time greats, but we think 39-year-old LeBron James is really the best player on Team USA. Is he even top 8? Is he top 6? Whatever. I'm just saying, like, there's guys that I think overall are better than him right now in their primes than him at his age at 39.
Well, and they should be, right?
That's what I'm saying. They should be.
But no. I'm not saying I fully agree with you, but like they should be. Players in their prime right now should be better than a 39-year-old LeBron James. Like that's not in terms of the Tatum thing. Look, I'm going to reveal my hand. I'm very public about this. Like the Celtics, I have always viewed that core as meh. Like just man, like they don't really do it for me. And were they the most dominant regular season team last year? Yes. And this is not what this podcast is. So I'll be very brief because we could take an hour and a half on this, and we'd have to call it setting the NBA instead of setting the pace because
setting the country, setting the NBA, setting the pace.
We got all kinds of new names out there for you. Alex is trademarking them as we speak. The Celtics had a very dominant regular season. They were clearly the best team in the East going into the playoffs. I felt like all the people that pointed to the Pacers and said you had an easy road to get to the conference finals, so did the Celtics. There was an injury or some type of injury complications with every team they played. And if you look at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They won the title. 30 years from now, no one's going to remember the road they took. All that's going to be remembered is Jayson Tatum, NBA champion. And I'm not trying to take that away from him. I'm just saying not all rings are created equal. Like when we look back at that team closer than the average Bear, you can't put them in the same breath as what their regular season stats showed of the 2016 Warriors who didn't win the title, but were viewed by many metrics as better than that team, or certainly any of those Jordan Bulls teams. I think Jayson Tatum is an incredibly gifted basketball player. I think he's undoubtedly a top 10 basketball player, probably in the NBA right now. But there are still players, I think, still on Team USA, and maybe I'm way off base with this, even LeBron James, that I would rather have out there than Jayson Tatum in a closeout situation, mainly because of how talented this roster is. Somebody's got to get cut. And I'm sorry, I'm not cutting the 39-year-old, to some people, greatest of all time versus Jayson Tatum. I can't bring myself to do that. Maybe you can. I can't.
Nobody's going to say they would do it. It's almost blasphemy to say that. Like you got the Stephen A. blasphemy, you know, that's blasphemous, you know, whatever. But regardless, to me, I'm just saying, I think LeBron James is a great basketball player, even if I don't like the player.
Sure, I'm not
as
saying
a Pacer
you're a LeBron
fan.
hater.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just trying to put it out there for what it is because the guy is older. He's getting older, and I've seen him regress as a player. And go back and watch his Heat tape. He's not the same guy. It's hard to think about it, but he's taken a step back. Even go back to who he was in the bubble year when they won the 2020 championship, the Mickey Mouse Trophy, right? I mean, honestly, like, who knows if they win that if there is no 3-4 month break, right?
Who knows?
For him to rest.
It's a fair question, right? But I don't want to do that either because everybody had the same, everybody had the same conditions. It was a very weird time for us as a world, is what it is. But Alex, the point remains, he is still playing at 39. He's at a higher level than most players will ever reach in the league.
That's fair.
I'm not saying that Tatum might not be a better all-around player. And you're right. He takes plays off. Sure. There's no doubt. You have to pick your spots when you're 39 years old.
And that's fair. That's all I'm saying is like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah. I'm just saying
Minus
prime Jayson Tatum, right?
Minus the part where I'd sub out Jayson Tatum. That's the only thing I disagree with.
That's fine. And I mean, I'm not even saying like, yeah, you're right. It's no one's going to say, let's take off prime Jayson Tatum, who didn't even win finals MVP on his own team, versus LeBron James at 39, arguably the greatest player of all time, depending on who you ask, right? So
there's one player I'd take him. Anthony Edwards is the only player from my starting five that I'd be willing to discuss with you of I'd put Tatum there. And the only reason I want Anthony Edwards there is because he does have that dog in him. And
yep.
He's the best defender on the floor most nights.
You can make the same case for a Drew Holiday in closing moments just because of his defensive ability. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of great players on this team. There's a reason why. Now, Tyrese Haliburton is probably one of the first guys you say, I don't know if I want to close a game with him.
But he belongs there. And that was the question, Alex, and you had documented it at the time, right? The biggest question going into Team USA announcements was, does Tyrese Haliburton belong there? He undoubtedly does, right?
Yes. I mean, I've seen non-Pacers and non-Knicks fans come together and say, Haliburton is better for FIBA than Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson might be better for the NBA, but we kind of saw in a small sample size of how different the game is for a guy like Joel Embiid, right? Joel Embiid's a great player. Like, there's no denying it. I was having some fun on Twitter yesterday. I posted a picture of Mo Bamba, and I said, Joel Embiid when he can't be a foul merchant. Like, I'm just having fun. Like, I don't care that much about this exhibition game. Like, if anybody takes a game in July that seriously, like, relax. Like, I'm not being that person. I'm just trolling. I'm just having fun. I mean, he is Joel Embiid for a reason, right? But I'm just having fun with it because he looked bad. And I think part of it is just trying to get a little bit more of a familiarity with that team as well. But I think part of the thing with Haliburton and why his unit played so much better is because I feel like they can play faster with that group.
Sure.
And that's what Haliburton likes to do. If he's out there playing with Joel Embiid and LeBron James, like that's a group that wants to maybe play a little bit slower, more half-court offense, where I think it would be very fun at some point to see Haliburton and Steph Curry play together because, one, we were robbed of that in Golden State as they didn't take Haliburton. They took James Wiseman instead in that draft. But I just think that it would be really fun to kind of see like those two players play together and Steph get to play off of Ty's ball handling a little bit and see what he can do, because I think that Tyrese is so good at getting everybody set up and getting them involved. So to me, like I thought Tyrese just displayed such a different effort in terms of like, okay, I know my role. I know I'm not the guy, but I'm accepting the role that I'm in. Yep. And that to me is like, he can do that role stuff better than a guy like Jalen Brunson. And I think that's what separates those two. And it kind of also brings the question up of like, why Derek White over a Jaylen Brown? I like Jaylen Brown. I think what he proved this year is awesome. And I'm glad he has a chip on his shoulder, but like, is he going to be willing to embrace all the dirty work that's going to come with like that role that Derek White will fill? Obviously, if Kawhi Leonard were healthy and able to play on this team, you can make the case he should be in that five to close out a game, just because we've seen Kawhi at his best be a top five player multiple times in the league. So it's a good problem to have, right? Team USA stacked, like you said, and I think everybody can say, you know, there might be teams that have a starting five that can compete with Team USA starting five, but it's that bench depth for Team USA that is just going to carry them against every other team internationally. And that's kind of what the Pacers did, you know? Their bench carried them when their starters maybe didn't have what it takes to overcome the other team starters, but their bench much, much better and allowed them to win a lot of games because they just either extended the lead, brought them back from a deficit, or just for the majority of the time played really well.
Yeah, I mean, he knows his role. That's the biggest thing that he needed to be able to accept being a part of Team USA, knowing that, hey, I belong here, but I'm not going to be, nor do I need to be, the guy that's hitting the game winner or dropping 35 for my country. I need to be the best version of myself that I can, which is one of the best point guards in the National Basketball Association. And that cohesively fits far better than any other player, Jalen Brunson included, that they could have had instead of Tyrese on this roster.
All right, let's flip it real quick over to Team Canada, because we did see Andrew Nembhard playing this game. Pretty quiet night for him. Didn't shoot the ball particularly well, and I think that they're a very guard-heavy team, so it's going to be interesting to see where he fits in. I think he kind of already knows what it's like to be a role player, but I want to go back to what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had to say about playing with Andrew Nembhard. The Pacers tweeted this out, and his quote was, "It feels like he doesn't make a mistake. He finds guys, picks up full court. He's like the perfect true point guard." For Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to say this about the Pacers starting two guard, their second string, third string point guard, however you want to view it, I thought that was very high praise from SGA. And, players respect players. I don't think they're going to say anything bad about him, but like, he didn't have to go out of his way to say that, to call him the perfect true point guard. So what were your thoughts on what SGA had to say about Nembhard, and how do you view Nembhard's opening debut for Team Canada?
I thought Nembhard looked solid. I thought that there was, not out of the gate, but as the game progressed, clearly some rust with Team Canada. That's going to be the case with all of these international teams. If you happen to be, and I'm not as sophisticated, nerdly, if that's a word, as others, but like if you happen to consume any of the soccer that's going on right now, like you see that in soccer all the time. It's a difference between club, like, a Manchester City or Manchester United, or an Indiana Pacers or a Boston Celtics, than there is playing for Team USA or playing for England, right? Like it's a different dynamic because you're not practicing with each other year round. You're only really getting this mini training camp and then your showcase games, and then good luck to you. Go win gold, go win silver, go win bronze. It's a harder dynamic. So I thought he looked solid. Anytime that you have an opportunity to represent someplace you call home, whether it's from a relative having citizenship there, like a grandma or grandpa or mom or dad, or it's because you actually were born there, or whatever, the opportunity to suit up for a country, represent them, and participate in the Olympics, I've always viewed as an athlete as one of the highest honors that you can have outside of your primary league that you're in, right? I think it's really cool. Here's my issue. Give me the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander quote one more time, Alex.
Yeah, so basically called him a perfect true point guard.
What's the issue with that quote?
He's a true point guard, and he's never going to be a true point guard with the Pacers. Which
is a shame, right? Because does that mean that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is seeing what – and to be clear, this is not me saying, Tyrese, see you later. That's not what I'm saying here. But, like, if that's what a fellow NBA player views Nembhard is best at, that means one of two things. Either he is in the wrong role with the Pacers as a starter. Like, not a starter. Let me backtrack. I got too excited for the second point. As the position, he's in the wrong position with the Pacers. Like, he shouldn't be a two guard. He should be a point guard. Well, sorry, my friend. That's Tyrese Haliburton's job. So what's the solution for that moving forward? I'm going to use Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as my endorser for the following statement. By November, Benedict Mathurin should be your two guard, and Andrew Nembhard should be your leading point guard off the bench, because that's where he's best.
Where does that put TJ McConnell?
I don't know. I know that's
the problem.
It's a fair question, and it's a lineup issue, because you agree with me on one point here. Mathurin, I don't know Benedict Mathurin. I don't know anybody on this team at a personal level, right? Okay. I just cover them. Me being Jimmy Cook, envisioning myself as a lottery pick in the NBA. I know, big leap here, people. Like, we gotta really, really fantasize here to make that a reality. By year 3, I'd like to be a starter. And at some point, a decision's either going to be made where Benedict Mathurin accepts the fact that he is only a sixth man on this team, or he gets elevated in the starting lineup. Who do you bump if you put him in the starting lineup? It's either Nembhard or Naismith. And if it's Nembhard, then what do you do with him after that? You have to put him as the starting guard for the second unit. So that means, I'm sorry, TJ, but it's back to the leadership role that you were. And that's, I don't know. What I don't have the answer. What would you do? If Nembhard is now your top guard off the bench, what happens to McConnell? Is he
I don't
still
think that's
part of
going to
that unit?
happen. That's where I have the problem, because I think we already saw that was the case last year, right? And they realized TJ's too good to keep out of the rotation. And I actually think Nembhard did a better job starting. I think Nembhard's one of those guys that gets into a rhythm as the game goes on. I don't think he's one of those guys you just throw him in there off the bench and
That's
boom, he's
fair.
ready to go. I
That's
just
fair.
don't see that with him. I think he's a starter. I'm more comfortable in a starting position because he can kind of work his way up. Like, you go from pregame to the game starting, that kind of thing, versus pregame, oh, now I got to sit for 6 minutes and kind of cool off, and then I got to hop into it. Like, sure, he could figure things out eventually if that's his ultimate role in the NBA, if he's a true backup point guard. But I think that with the way Indiana's kind of built, if you feel like Mathurin has to start, I would probably lean more towards let's bring Nesmith
Neesmith's
off the
better.
bench.
Okay. And I don't
Because
disagree with you on that. I don't disagree
what?
with you on that. I don't disagree with you on that. But my bigger issue, I wasn't trying to make like a big, like, sexy proclamation of, oh, hey, Mather has to start. My bigger thing is that I think that Nembhard's better as a point guard. And if he's better as a point guard, what does that mean for the Pacers? Because I don't. Here's what it would mean. In a perfect world, it means somebody else views Nembhard as a point guard, a starting point guard, and he's a trade piece. Like, that's
Now we're talking.
what it means.
That's the big thing. And I've said this because I think it's really interesting. I don't know if you've heard me say this or not, but there's a lot, and I know for our listeners are probably getting tired of hearing me say this, but if he does not extend this season, they have two options in the upcoming offseason. One, they can pick up that option and he can become an unrestricted free agent in 2026, or they can send him a qualifying offer and make him a restricted free agent in 2025, tell him to go out there and get a deal and then match it, and then that could kind of allow them to bring him back, because I don't think they want to let him get to unrestricted free agency, because I think at that point it's all but gone. But they might be up against it next year with how close they'll be to the tax. And so now you're basically paying him a year early on an extension compared to paying him at the minimum, which is the smallest, I think, amount on the roster right now. Maybe Johnny Furphy makes less than him, but at one, like, Kendall Brown had more money than him on the roster. So here's what I've been saying. I think if he hits restricted free agency, there's a team that I'm looking out for, and that team is San Antonio. I think that, to me, he is a Popovich type of guy. Doesn't love the media, but wants you to notice him. I think that him and Wemby together could be dynamic.
Sure.
Great defensive point guard. We know how much Pop loves defensive guys. I think his offense has gotten so much better. You saw what he could do in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm sure there are a handful of other teams that would love to get their hands on Andrew Nembhard and say, you know what, we think you can be our starting point guard of the future because you're a two-way guy. It's not just what he brings offensively, it's what he brings defensively too. And what he was able to do against Boston in the Pacers offensive system, to me, that speaks volumes to who he could become if he gets more opportunity with the ball in his hands. I've asked different people off the air about this, and they're like, I don't see that ceiling with Nembhard. I don't think he's that level of player. He might be a starter, but I don't see a star in him. And I'm like, I don't know. I just, maybe I'm a little bit too close to the situation here in Indiana, watching him do what he does all the time. But I just feel like there is untapped potential for him, and I think he is destined to be a starting point guard in this league, and that's not going to happen in Indiana because you already said it. That's Tyrese Haliburton's position, and he's never going to be able to take over that spot on this team. Now, if they
I
can
don't know
figure
why
things out, go ahead.
I don't know why this name popped into my head. Rondo was never a star. Rondo was not a superstar in the league.
Yep.
But he played a role as a starter because that's what Boston needed him to be. I use Rondo as an example just because he was the first. Derek Fisher wasn't a star. He was a really good player, but he wasn't a star or the face of that team. Like, I'll agree with people that maybe Nembhard can't be a superstar level point guard, but if you have, and I know it's so convoluted because we don't have a big three era anymore, but if you had a Wembanyama and a couple other high-level pieces in a Greg Popovich offense, and Nembhard your starting guard, like, I'm not going to say championship because that feels like a bridge too far, but, like, that'd be a really good team. So, sure, maybe execs or people want to tell you, Alex, that, like, he can't be a superstar or star in the league. That's fine. There have been plenty of high-level point guards on championship teams that weren't stars in their own right.
Yeah. Derek White, right? Like,
yeah.
He's not a star. He's a really, really good basketball player, right?
Yep.
So I think that does kind of make sense. And I think that I'm sure there's going to be a lot of teams that have interest. And I think he could be a big trade chip, especially if they want to make a consolidation trade. And if he kind of says, look, I want an opportunity to start somewhere else, like, what's going to happen. So as the camera is continuing to
Yeah,
adjust,
I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing because my camera can't make up its mind.
yeah, it is. I'm getting used to it, so I'm trying to ignore it so I don't lose my train of thought. But we had a lot of fun with this pre-podcast, just laughing when we were talking, and it would just start zooming in on Jimmy's face. But overall, I will just say this: like, I don't want to keep going down the Nembhard might get moved because I'm sure people are tired of hearing me say that. But I encourage everybody just to like kind of monitor that because it just goes back to what SGA said about him. He's a very talented player. It's just where does he fit in long term? And I think everybody would say long term, Indiana fans and probably the Pacers organization would say we drafted Mathurin and Walker in the lottery to eventually be starters. And I think
Correct.
that by the end of Pascal Siakam's contract, you would like to be able to say our starting five is Haliburton, Mathurin, Walker, Siakam, Turner. I mean, something along those lines where your 2 lottery picks are starting. They've evolved into these players that are contributing at a high level that hopefully you can get yourself to a championship or be in the Eastern Conference Championship multiple times in a row. So that's easy to wish. That's wishful thinking, right? These guys have to go out there and earn it. But I don't think that Nembhard should lose his spot to a Mathurin unless Mathurin just goes in there and takes it from him. I think that Nembhard has proven the last 2 years when he starts, the team's better. And I think a lot of that's because it allows Haliburton to have someone else take the pressure off of him and be that secondary ball handler, specifically in this offense. And that's the only thing that gives me a little bit of hope of why they might want to keep Nembhard in that starting 5 and moving forward, just because it does alleviate all that ball pressure being on Tyrese to be the guy, the setup guy. I think having multiple ball handlers that can do that makes it easier for them to go out there and attack, because we even saw when Haliburton went out, some of the best lineups were McConnell and Nembhard in that Celtics series.
Well, then could that work as a second unit?
Maybe it could.
Because
who do you think's more of a threat, like a scoring threat in the second unit, Nembhard or Mathurin?
Probably Benedict, but
and that's what's worked so well.
I would tell you that I was going to say McConnell because he's so good at creating his own shot, and it's
last year feels like an anomaly. I don't know if he can repeat that.
And that's the other thing. Are you banking on him doing it again next year? I mean, I'm not going to bet against TJ McConnell, certainly. But, bold prediction, and I'm probably going to be wrong on this because it's just how Rick Carlisle operates. That's not a bad thing. It's just a fact. Bennett Mathurin should be a starter on opening night. And I don't know if he's going to earn that or if they're going to give that to him. And if he's not, then the clock starts ticking, because the reason can't be the team is better with him not in the starting 5. Because if that's the answer, then that leads down to a bridge of the team is better without him in the starting 5. And, oh no, he's on this team-controlled contract, or we're going to have to pay a big amount of money to him at some point to retain his services, and then you have to look at trading him. And then if you look to have to trade him with all the cap numbers, you have to move somebody with him. Who are you moving with him? Miles Turner? It opens up such a can of worms this season anyway. If you're wrong on Mathurin, or even if you're unknown on Mathurin, but a conflict arises where he feels like he should be a starter, and the answer can't be the team's better with him off the bench. Because if the answer is the team's better with him off the bench, then either one of two things are true. Either they missed on the pick, or there's no real future here for him, and they need to try to trade him. And if it's the second, I wouldn't want to be Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan, because the math is not mathing on getting – this is not a pun, I apologize – on getting good – the math's not mathing to get a value for Mathurin, okay? It's just not happening. So, you know it. You look at the cap numbers. If you have to move him based on what he's being paid now, you have to ship other pieces out too.
Right.
And so am I crazy? Maybe I'm crazy about opening night, but
Yeah,
There's
because
no way year 3 Mathurin is going to sit there at the All-Star break and be like, oh, yeah, I'm glad I'm the sixth man on this team.
okay, but let's go back to last year. Who started opening night for the Pacers at the 2 guard? Ben Mathurin. How many times did he start? Like 12 games. And then Rick Carlisle said, I've seen enough. We're not clicking like we need to. And when he went to the bench, the team got better. So nobody is entitled to me. And that's where I think people kind of get so caught up. And you're not just some people, but like
No,
people
I
get
know.
caught up in like, oh, lottery pick, he has to start. He needs to get these minutes right away. Look, Indiana's no longer in this developmental stage. They're in a win now stage. They're in a let's compete at the highest level. And to
Sure.
me, it's like if Benedict Mathurin gives you the best chance to win, then we'll start seeing him close a lot of games as the five, the closing five, and maybe he earns his way into that. But to
Then,
say,
but if the answer, Alex, is he's not that, if the answer is he is only a sixth man for this team, and I'm not saying this is definitive, but if the answer is that's all he is for this team, you have to try to move him before it's too late. Because if right now the Pacers front office says to themselves, gosh, this Benedict Mathurin, he's not the star we thought he was. He's a role player.
he's 21.
I know it's super young to think that, but if that's the answer, and they think that internally, perhaps because of how young he is, and perhaps because of the upside, there is a team out there that would be willing to go arm and a leg to go acquire him. If you wait, if we sim this out 2 years when he's 23 or 24, and he's still a guy that's just a bench player for this team, at what point is the value no longer there for him? Because I view Bennett Mather as one of two things. I view him as either an elite starter, or I view him as a piece that needs to be consolidated. I don't see him being a guy, maybe I'm way off on this, but I don't see him being a guy throughout his entire career that's going to be sixth man off the bench. And the Pacers shouldn't view him that way either. Like, and I know this is, we could talk about this because it's a great conversation across the board. It's part of the reason like kids play 2K to get to be general managers and like to mash things up. I don't know what happens with Bennett Mathurin, but I know how the human psyche operates. And I'm not saying you should just give it to him, Alex. I totally agree with you. It should be earned.
Yeah.
But if it's not earned, and I'm air quoting here, that's not going to do anything weird on my camera, is it? No, we're good. I'm air quoting earned here because if it's not earned, at what point does Benedict Mathurin feel like it's a rigged game and he's never going to crack that starting lineup? And at what point does that affect a young player in the league? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be tough internally for him to just continue sitting there as never getting a chance to start. And I think if the team wins and he ends up, being a six man, and we're laughing because the camera just moved now.
Sorry.
But I will just say this: like, if he continues to come off the bench and this team starts winning, like, why is Carlisle going to change things up?
Sure, and maybe at that point he'd be happy with it.
Yeah.
Like if they're winning, winning cures all. Maybe I'm overthinking it, and it won't be a big deal for anybody. But
I think a lot of people overthink it because I even overthought it last year. Like I thought he has to start. Like I thought at one point, like him and Chris Duarte were going to start together, just because it's like, okay, like we're in a rebuild. Pacers in a rebuild. They got Chris Duarte, had a really good rookie season, made all rookie second team. They draft Benedict Mathurin. Like those two got to start with Haliburton. Like I'm thinking to myself, like this is a team, like you got to just go all in youth wise.
For the sake of my conversation, and I'm not faulting Alex here because a lot of people felt the same way. I was always indifferent to negative about Chris Duarte. I want to separate Benedict Mathurin quickly from but I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
Back-to-back lottery picks, right? You're thinking this is like who you got to kind of build around. And like Chris Duarte showed like early on in his career before we got the injury, like the injury against Miami is kind of like when things really went down for him. I think Kyle Lowry flopped and took Chris Duarte out of the game, and he had been starting at that point because they were small at the small forward position. So it was like, okay, if you got this guy you drafted last year, you got Mathurin this year, you still don't have that power forward, but you can try to figure things out. Neesmith was coming over. Nembhard was looked at as like a third string point guard. Like just the development of some of these players so early and so fast has made it more muddy. Like the waters are so much more muddy now because Nembhard took a leap in year one, and Carlisle was just like, he's too good. I cannot keep him in the I'm trying to say? I'm getting tired right now. I can't talk, but basically, like he's too good to
You
not
can't
put
keep him
in.
on the bench. You got to be
Yes,
using him. Sure.
yes, thank you. That's why you're the radio guy. I'm the podcast guy. You do this for a lot longer than I do. But long story short, it's a fun and good problem to have, but it's still a problem. And I think, I just talked with Kevin Bone about this a couple days ago on this podcast. Like, I think Mathurin could have a great year 3. I really do believe that. Like, he could break out this year, especially after seeing what this team just did in the playoffs and be like, I want to be a part of that. I'm going to work my butt off to do whatever I can to get into that spot. So it's a really fascinating conversation, Jimmy, like you said, but we could be here all day debating left and right, all the different stuff. So
you would say Neesmith, though. If he breaks through and you have to replace somebody in that 5, you would say Neesmith.
I think it makes more sense naturally.
Okay.
I think you would maybe like the size a little bit more with, Mathurin over Nembhard, but I just feel like Neesmith is someone that could adapt a little bit more to coming off the bench. And if Nembhard takes another step forward, because remember, Nembhard's still pretty young.
Sure.
Obviously,
it's a great problem to have. A lot of young pieces all across the roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you looked at the Eastern Conference Finals, you would say, okay, the Pacers' best player when Haliburton went out was either Nembhard or Siakam, right? I mean, it's hard to argue like that Nembhard was better than Siakam in those moments, but he was really good for a lot of that game on both ends. And then I would say Neesmith, though, against the Knicks was like the difference maker. Like if it was just Mathurin and Nembhard, like there's a good chance that the Knicks win that series because of what Neesmith was able to do on Brunson. So it's like everybody is very important, but I think ultimately it's not who starts. And I know everybody always says this, but it's true. It's who finishes. And we saw at times last year, even when Mathurin was coming off the bench again, he was still closing out games. And I think that's because Rick Carlisle trusts him in late game situations to hit big buckets and things like that. So that's where I kind of feel like he might be more of a guy that ends up being a closer than he is a starter.
But labels matter, and people can downplay it, and I get it when we have it as a paper roster. We look at it and we remove the human element. We say that should be fine. He's closing games. He should be happy with that, and maybe he is. But we have years of history in this league of egos winning out, and I think at some point, if you're good enough to close, you should be good enough to start. And if a coaching staff doesn't see it that way, if conflict doesn't arise from that, I would be stunned.
Yeah, it's going to happen eventually. I think you're going to have a hard time making all of these players happy at some point.
Sure.
And I think
I don't envy the job at all. I don't envy it at all.
It's a consolidation trade is going to happen within the next year or two. It's just a matter of when, not if. So that is what's really fascinating here with this Pacers team. But it's going to be an exciting year. And I'm sitting here looking at this graphic for this podcast. You've got Haliburton with Team USA versus Nembhard for Team Canada. And it kind of feels like that's the conversation we're having, is a Haliburton versus Nembhard thing, which kind of ties in a Mathurin thing, who's also in Team Canada. Just there's so many layers here to like what makes this all fascinating and what makes it all interesting. But let's take our eyes and our thoughts off of all this basketball talk, because it's kind of a lot to digest, and let's digest something that's a little bit more enjoyable. Nice. Maybe not the biggest filler, but it's probably your go-to side with a burger, and that is French fries. So me and Jimmy Cook are going to be doing a French fry draft. Now, Jimmy did kind of reveal his answer today on the radio, shockingly, and then brought it back up to my attention before we started.
I believe I got first pick for our Easter candy draft, so I want you to take first pick, even though you know the selection I want. I think you should have first.
Here's what I was going to say. Since you kind of already told me your first selection, instead of doing a snake draft, let's just do a back and forth draft.
Okay.
And I'll let you go first with McDonald's fries. I don't want to steal your thunder.
There are some tasty fries out there, but your timeless go-to French fry that will deliver for you time and time again is the McDonald's French fry. At times, Alex, when I'm trying to be healthier, I'll go. Sounds bad, I know. I'll go get a nice little sandwich from Jimmy John's, but I'm not going to get Jimmy John's chips because there's a McDonald's right across the street, and I'll go get a nice small fry from McDonald's. So I've got the salty deliciousness from Mickey D's, and I also have the nice healthy bootlegger club from Jimmy John's. So number one selection for me, McDonald's French fry.
Okay. I would not have picked McDonald's number one. The reason why for
You always
me,
hate on my picks. You always.
I'm not hating on your picks, okay? You're the same guy that picked Peeps during Easter candy, and that was your downfall. Now, I'm not saying McDonald's.
Late. I took Peeps. They were still there.
But it's like everybody was mad about that. Like they were like, "Oh, I can't do Peeps," and I was laughing. Now, I think they've changed their oil too much. I think the fries have tasted different recent times I go, and I would say they're not usually consistent.
There's a conspiracy amongst the McDonald's fry community. That's what you're saying?
I think there is. I think the oil has changed.
All right.
So for me, my first pick from my side, I'm torn between two. But the thing is, a lot of times people like fries when they dip it in ketchup or they dip it in something. And so I think you have to take dipping out of it and just
I would agree.
The fry by itself. But I still have to go with it. I'm a waffle fry guy. I'm going with Chick-fil-A waffle fries.
So I love the waffle fry. I do. However,
always hating on my picks.
I find myself needing to go to that extra dip of Chick-fil-A sauce to fully agree. Unless also you got to eat those waffle fries quick, because I've been on the drive home, and if I don't eat them on the drive and I wait till they become soggy and they're just
I will say this, I can't not eat them on the way home. So I'm a guy that will hold a packet of Chick-fil-A in my hand while I'm driving, and I'll dip the fry while I'm eating and keep driving. So so it is one of those things where the sauce makes them better, but still I think Chick-fil-A fries, when they're hot and fresh, like, yeah, you're going to get a few soggy ones because they're waffle fries, but like the ones that are crisp and crunchy, they're pretty salt. Like their salt is always very evenly rationed. So I will say that's one thing I like about their fries. I was torn between another one. We'll see what you do with your second pick here. But
you sure you don't want a snake? You're sure?
We can do it if you want. It's up to you.
And go ahead and snake. I feel like it's only because don't let my top don't. Just because Woj leaked my pick doesn't mean that you shouldn't still get a snake drafted. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to go with the Rally's French fries.
Okay.
Rally's is my go-to.
It's a good fry. We don't have one up here in Carmel. We had one on the south side where I grew up that I would get all the time. I think it's since closed down. It's a quality fry.
The one on Kentucky Avenue, right off of 465, they always have them hot and fresh. There's been a lot of Rally's that have closed down since COVID, so I don't know how much longer it'll last, but
Did you ever get the Fry Lover burger? They put fries on top of the patty. This is like a 2010s type deal.
I don't think I did.
That was one of my go-tos. It was very good.
They do have chicken fingers now that are made with the same fry seasoning, which are very good. But when you got chicken fingers after your fry seasoning, I think it kind of speaks to how good your fries are. So Rally's and Chick-fil-A are my two. I would honestly pick Rally's fries over Chick-fil-A fries if I had the choice between the two. I just didn't know if you'd pick Rally's or Chick-fil-A first.
Chick-fil-A would have been somewhere in my top 5, but it wouldn't have been in my top 3. Okay. Rally's, I like Rally's fries. It's hard to find a bad French fry. Rally's would not have been in my top 5. Okay. So that'll be the hit to pick again, but that's the one. I'm going to take the Five Guys French fry.
Perfect
the Five Guys French fry is delicious because of the fresh cut aspect of it. It's made right then and there, and you can get a small and feel like you're eating a large because they're going to load up that bag like crazy. So my second overall pick will be the Five Guys fry.
That's a great pick. It was on my top 5 list. I love Five Guys fries. I like the Cajun fries actually quite a bit myself.
I've had them before. They're good.
Yeah. The only problem with the Five Guys fry, like you said, there's always too many fries.
Yeah.
They do get cold quick as well.
They do.
You have to eat them fast, which I do. And I usually eat them all because I'm usually hungry when I eat it. And then I always feel sick after. I always feel full after Five Guys. But it doesn't discredit how delicious their fries are.
Yep.
So you're back up. Your next pick. We're snake drafting.
Oh, I snake too. Okay. Well, then I'm going to complete the sweep of this category because they're nearly an identical fry, but I want the monopoly on it. The Penn Station fry. It's basically the exact same as the Five Guys fry in terms of style, in terms of taste. But we're building a super team here, and I kind of got screwed over by this in the Easter candy draft, so I don't feel bad about it. I'm taking boom boom. Give me both styles, Five Guys and Penn Station.
I'm mad at you, man. I thought if you picked Five Guys, you wouldn't pick Penn Station. I thought it was going to slide right to me. I love the Penn Station fry. They're fire, man. They're really
wonderful.
good.
They're wonderful.
Oh, man. Well, I got to stall for time because I'm trying to think here which route I want to go. Because, see, like, I think a lot of the, like, popular fries are kind of overrated. Like, I think curly fries from Arby's are a little bit overrated. I think that the Burger King fry is probably one of the most boring fries in all of the world.
I would agree.
And I think almost any crinkle fry is kind of boring.
Depends where you get them from.
That's fair. Okay, so I got 2 picks back to back here now.
Yep.
And trying to think. I'm really struggling right now. I really thought Penn Station was going to fall to me. So you got me good here.
This happened to me with the candy draft. It's retribution. Retribution for Team Cook.
I was on a roll there with my draft domination. So I need to take a piece of humble pie here and just eat my loss. But I know they're not always around, but they are kind of a seasonal thing. I'm going to go with the Taco Bell fry.
The nacho fry, okay?
Yes, the Taco Bell nacho fries. Those are good.
They are good.
And I wouldn't say they're great, but they are pretty good. And it's not normal for a Mexican place to have great French fries, but I will say these are pretty good. I do like them better than the curly fry, like I mentioned before. So now I've got to go to my next pick. And this might be a little bit of a deep cut. So if it's too deep, then you can tell me I can't pick it. Have you ever been to Joel's up north or up in Broad Ripple? Joel's Chicken.
Well, it's the chicken place.
Joel's
yes,
Chicken. Yes, Joel.
Yeah.
Have you had their truffle fries? Their loaded truffle fries?
I don't know if I have, but I've had truffle fries before, so I'll allow it. Those are delicious fries.
Okay. So
but I will admit, we're starting, admittedly, I don't have a problem with it being a deep cut, but we're starting to take away from the fry itself, and we're starting to talk about the toppings that accent it. That said, I have no problem with it on the list. It's still a fry. I don't have a problem.
I feel kind of dirty taking it then. If it's
No. I think it'll make up. I think it'll make up for your nacho fry pick. I think it'll.
You didn't like the nacho fry pick? Is that my peeps of the draft?
That's your peeps. I think your nacho fry pick is going to be your peeps.
Well, I'm picking the Joella truffle. Then I guess I think they're pretty good. I've had them recently. I was actually like at Joella's when I was doing the late night show with Derek Schultz, and I went out to the car because we had just got our food and I wasn't going on the call. And I did like the 7-minute segment, went inside, scarfed down my chicken, came back and did the last 7 minutes on that segment because I know the commercials are quick. So, all right, I got the Joella truffle fries. You're back on the clock. You're rounding out your starting 5 of French fries. What are we going with?
I'm going to go with, because I've had it recently and it's as good a crinkle fry as you're going to find, and it's seasoned nicely. I'm going to go with the Cane's crinkle fry. They just put one here in Carmel. There's one in Noblesville too. It's delightful. The tenders there are great too. We're just focused on the fry. The crinkle fry is solid. And then perhaps this is my peeps moment as well, but I just vastly disagree with my counterpart here. The reason that there's only one known fast food curly fry is because it's been perfected, and that is the Arby's curly fry. So I will be taking that. It is great both from the restaurant, or if you're like I did in college and you go out and you are looking for a nice fry from the frozen food section, you're like, I want something kind of different. I don't want the bland regular shoestring fry or whatever. I want something fresh. I want something new. You grab that crinkle fry frozen food bag, and it is as good as you get at the restaurant. So that's my selection. My 5th pick is Arby's. Alex, your last pick?
Yeah, my last pick here, and it's going to be not another deep cut because it's not a deep cut, but it's another chicken place that I think has really good fries, and they kind of have a sweet dusting on them. That's the Wingstop fries. I don't know if you've ever had their fries.
No. It's delicious, and it's similar to, not quite identical, but it's similar to that Penn Station
cut.
Five Guys type of cut. Very good. It gets cold quick. You got to eat them quick, like you mentioned, but it's a very good fry. Yes.
Yeah, and they have great ranch. I will just say that as well. I dip all my fries in ranch. Their ranch is like,
their ranch is immaculate. I'll tell you what, not to judge the board, and you judge my board all the time, so I don't feel bad. I would put the Wingstop fry above both the nacho fry and the Joella's truffle fries. I would put that.
It's definitely one of those ones where I was thinking about it and I kind of forgot, and I was like, okay, you
got frozen. You didn't expect to see a back-to-back of Five Guys and Penn Station. I'm sorry.
I know. You took Penn Station off the board. It was like John Collins off the board, and I got stuck taking TJ Leaf, so here I am drafting Taco Bell fries. I mean, my goodness. Do we want to go with a 6-man at all, or we just want to wrap it up here?
I say, unless you have one that you feel like we missed out on, I say wrap it. I'm pretty confident with my fry.
Honorable mention, and I think that this is a fry that has gotten a lot better since they've kind of revamped them. That's the Wendy's fries.
I would agree. I will throw out there the Culver's Crinkle. If you're a Crinkle fan, as an honorable mention, it's a solid one.
Okay, so just to recap our list, here's Jimmy's starting five. He's got the McDonald's fries. He's got the Five Guys fry, the Penn Station fry.
What a big three.
Cane's Crinkle, and the Arby's. My starting five, we got the Rally's French fries, the Goat, Chick-fil-A French fries, Taco Bell nacho fries, Joella's truffle fries, and the Wingstop French fries. I think there's a little bit more variety with my fry list than yours.
That's fine. You can have the variety you want, but you're going to be needing that rally because it's a route, my friend. It is a route. Big three. That's what I'm saying. You're going to need all the rallies you can get.
Yeah, I mean, your big three, though. I mean, it's kind of like the big three of Team USA. You got LeBron as one of your big three. I think that my five might have more of the new era, right? The Taco Bell nacho fry is your Tyrese Haliburton, right? It's the role player on this team, but it's
nacho cheese ain't coming along for the ride, my friend. This is a no.
That dusting's pretty good on it. Have you had the dusting on it?
I had the dusting on it. I have. Yeah.
Go get you a Taco Bell nacho fry.
And look. They're just like Team Canada. There's NBA players on that list for certain. They're still losing by 15. That's all I'm saying.
Man, that's probably your best. That's probably been your best comeback today. Better than the setting the country. I mean,
setting the country wasn't an insult. I was just saying that maybe there's rebranding going on. That's all I was saying.
I mean, just jokes though. Like it's just you're trying to be funny. You know what I mean? Like setting the pace, setting the country. I mean, I like calling my fry list Team Canada. It's got NBA players on it, but let's just put it this way: SGA was an MVP candidate, so I've got
enjoy your maple syrup with your fries, my friend. As an ambassador to Team Canada,
they don't even eat maple syrup with their fries. They eat that whatchamacallit stuff that what is it? I don't want to say the wrong thing.
I don't know what it's called either, so I'm not going to do that.
It's a special ketchup. They have a Canadian ketchup. So anyway, a lot of fun here. Pacers basketball and French fries. What else could you guys ask for on a Friday as you're listening to this podcast? So thank you all so much. And you guys can follow Jimmy Cook on Twitter at the J Cook. And guess what? He's the co-host of Query and Company on 107.5 The Fan from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. You can check out the podcast. If you don't get a chance to listen to it live, they also have a YouTube feed you can watch on there. They go live on X and Twitter as well. So there's plenty of ways to catch Jimmy. And I'm sure that somehow this is going to be brought up later on the podcast or on the radio show with Jay Query, as me and Jimmy did not touch one of the Burger King picks.
We did not. We left Burger King in the trash where it belongs.
Yeah. Okay. That's between you and Jake. I don't want to get involved. It's a conversation there, but I like plugging our guys. Anything else you want to plug? I know you guys have a cool event coming up, right, at the Back Nine, or
we do. The Fan on the Back Nine golf tournament. It's taking place. Well, this is being recorded on Thursday, so it's a week from Thursday, July 18th. Back Nine Golf and Entertainment Center, brought to you by Franciscan Health. There's going to be live shows out there. Myself and Jake Query and Company will be noon to 3. JMV will be live 3 to 6. The event itself starts at 11, but the action gets kicked off at noon. We will be out there throughout the course of the day, all the way through the end of John's show. There'll be a silent auction with sports memorabilia, one-of-a-kind experiences. They'll be auctioned off, all going towards Franciscan Health. It's going to be a fantastic time. There's still tickets available. Last I checked, though, they are going fast. 1075thefan.com. Click the link on there as well to buy tickets. And, yeah, we'd love to have you out there. It's always great doing live shows. And you know how that is, Alex, get a chance to interact and meet with fans like you do for Setting the Pace. It's really cool. It's nice to know people are listening, and it's even better to just hang out with fellow sports fans. So hope you're able to come out there. And, I mean, Alex, this has been a blast. I appreciate you having me on. It's always good to get behind the moving cameras, as it were, and hang out with you for a bit. So
absolutely. It's been a fun ride here on Setting the Pace, Setting the Country, and I forget what else you said. I forget what the other one was, but we had a lot of settings going on over here. We set the French fry pick. I know that. So let us know what you guys think in the comment section below of our conversation today and what you guys thought of our draft. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And Fachin, I'll be back later next week. So hope you all have a good weekend. We'll talk to you then.